The palatial throne room of Nexus Prime gleamed with an otherworldly brilliance, its crystalline walls refracting starlight in patterns that would have been beautiful if not for the tension crackling through the air. Emperor Kraz'thull, his scaled skin shimmering with bioluminescent markings of royal purple and gold, lounged on his living throne, a masterpiece of bioengineering that pulsed in sync with his heartbeats. "And now the humans send me this," his voice boomed through the chamber, each word dripping with condescension. A mere female to beg for peace. Commander Alexandra Sterling stood motionless before him, her diplomatic uniform pristine, despite the 14-hour wait he'd forced upon her. A slight smile played at the corners of her mouth, not the reaction the Emperor had expected from Earth's last ambassador. "Your Eminence," she spoke, her voice carrying an edge that made several of his guards shift uncomfortably. "I come bearing terms for your immediate surrender." The throne room erupted in laughter. Kraz'thull's massive frame shook with mirth, his secondary breathing gills flaring wide. The assembled court of alien dignitaries joined in, some from genuine amusement, others from the very real fear of not laughing at their emperor's pleasure. "Surrender," he leaned forward, four-fingered hands gripping the armrests of his throne. "Perhaps your translator malfunctions. My armada surrounds your pathetic world. Your orbital defenses are in ruins, and you dare speak of surrender." Alexandra's smile grew wider. Behind her back, her fingers traced the outline of what appeared to be a ceremonial blade, a diplomatic gift that had somehow made it through security. The guards had scanned it, of course, finding it to be nothing more than decorated metal. They hadn't recognized the ancient katana for what it truly was. "The terms are simple," she continued, her voice never wavering. "Withdraw your forces immediately, provide reparations for the colonies you've destroyed, and acknowledge humanity's sovereign right to exist. In return, we'll let you keep your empire." The Emperor rose to his full height, 12 feet of genetically engineered perfection. His personal shield hummed to life, a barely visible distortion in the air around him. "You amuse me, human. Perhaps I'll keep you as a court jester after we finish reducing your cities to ash." Alexandra's eyes tracked every movement in the room. The 6 royal guards with their plasma rifles. The court sycophants with their hidden weapons. The automated defense systems humming in the walls. She'd memorized it all during her long wait. "You still don't understand what humanity is, do you?" She took a step forward, causing the guards to raise their weapons. "You look at our smaller frames, our shorter lives, our lack of natural weapons, and you see weakness. That's why you're going to lose." "Enough," Kraz'thull roared. "I tire of this farce. Guards, take this presumptuous creature to the detention levels. Perhaps sometime in our reconditioning chambers we'll teach her proper respect." The royal guards moved forward in perfect formation, their armor gleaming under the starlight. They didn't notice how Alexandra's stance had shifted ever so slightly, her weight balanced on the balls of her feet. "One last chance, Your Eminence," she said softly. "Surrender now, and I guarantee your survival." The Emperor's laughter echoed once more through the chamber. "And who exactly are you to make such guarantees?" Alexandra's smile finally reached her eyes. "They call me the Ghost of New Singapore, the Butcher of the Rigel campaign, the woman who single-handedly destroyed your flagship during the Battle of Proxima Centauri." She paused, watching recognition and then fear flash across the Emperor's alien features. "But you can call me your executioner." The gravitational weapons turned Jupiter's moons into projectiles. That was how the Dominion announced their true intentions. 3 billion dead in the first week. Earth's orbital defenses shattered like glass. The message was simple: kneel or die. Alexandra watched it unfold from Special Forces Command, her hands clenched into fists as New Singapore burned. The city's iconic skyline melted under plasma fire, its thermal signature matching the heat of her rage. Her family was there, had been there. "Project Samurai is no longer theoretical," General Rodriguez told her that night, sliding a neural tablet across his desk. "You're our best candidate. Peak physical scores, exceptional combat record, and most importantly, the right motivation." The procedure should have killed her. Previous subjects went insane as their brains failed to process the neural upgrades, their minds rejecting the perfect fusion of ancient combat knowledge with enhanced reflexes. Alexandra survived by focusing on a single thought: vengeance. 3 months of agony as carbon fiber lattices merged with her muscles. Neural pathways rewritten to process combat data faster than human limits allowed. Through it all, She remembered the sight of New Singapore burning, used the pain to forge herself into something new. The Rigel campaign proved her worth. Solo infiltration of Dominion battle stations, destroying them from within. Their AI-driven warships were formidable, but their commanders insisted on maintaining personal control of key facilities. Pride became their weakness. Alexandra moved like a ghost through their security. 1,000 years of sword masters had their techniques encoded in her muscle memory, combined with modern combat training and enhanced strength. The Dominion never saw her coming. At Proxima Centauri, she proved that a single human could change the course of war. The Emperor's son died screaming, never knowing it was a human hand that plunged an ancient blade through his primary heart. His flagship's reactor went critical moments later, throwing the Dominion fleet into chaos. Now, after 5 years of guerrilla warfare, came the final gambit. The diplomatic mission was crafted over months, exploiting the Dominion's own protocols. They couldn't scan an official ambassador too thoroughly it would insult Earth's sovereignty, giving their rivals an excuse to intervene. Alexandra spent weeks memorizing the palace layout. Guard rotations, servant patterns, security protocols, she absorbed them all. The katana at her side was more than a weapon. Forged by the last mastersmith of Tokyo, its monomolecular edge could cut through Dominion battle armor, like paper. Each step of her journey, from the ashes of New Singapore to this moment, had been calculated. The Dominion thought they understood warfare with their massive fleets and planet-killing weapons. They were about to learn why humans were different. Why Earth's ancient warriors were remembered with fear and respect long before humanity reached the stars. The weight of the blade reminded her of its purpose. Soon, very soon, the Emperor would understand true fear. Emperor Kraz'thull raised his hand, signaling to the guards. Bring in the others. The massive doors swung open, revealing the rest of Earth's diplomatic team. Ambassador Chen and his 3 aides stumbled forward, their uniforms torn, faces bruised from interrogation. Alexandra's expression remained neutral, but her fingers tightened imperceptibly around the katana's hilt. You see, Kraz'thull's voice resonated with cruel amusement. Your mission was compromised before you arrived. Did you think we wouldn't recognize the energy signature of your neural enhancements? A guard kicked Ambassador Chen's legs, forcing him to his knees. The elderly diplomat maintained his dignity, staring defiantly at the Emperor. The only question remaining, the Emperor continued, is whether you'll watch them die before we begin your reconditioning, or after. Alexandra's voice cut through the tension. You made 3 mistakes, Your Eminence. She took a step forward, causing the guards to tense. First, you assumed I came here to negotiate. Second, you brought hostages to a conversation with a ghost. Her smile turned predatory. And third, you let me keep my blade. The katana cleared its sheath with a whisper of steel against silk. The sound triggered the palace's automated defense systems, but Alexandra was already moving. The first guard's plasma rifle split in half, along with his armor and the major arteries beneath it. He was dead before his finger could tighten on the trigger. Impossible, Kraz'thull roared as the second guard's head separated cleanly from his shoulders. No primitive weapon can penetrate Dominion battle armor. Alexandra's enhanced muscles propelled her into a backflip as energy beams crisscrossed the space she'd occupied. She landed beside Ambassador Chen, the katana blurring as it deflected incoming fire. The blade remembers, she said, her voice carrying over the chaos, even if you forgot. The remaining guards spread out, trying to establish a crossfire. Alexandra pushed the diplomatic team toward a defensive alcove, her sword moving in patterns perfected over 1,000 years of human warfare. Plasma bolts ricocheted harmlessly off the monomolecular edge. I am Commander Alexandra Sterling, her voice rang out as she bisected another guard. Survivor of New Singapore, apprentice to the last sword masters of Earth, and your executioner. The Emperor's personal shield flared as he backed toward his throne. Kill her. Kill them all. Alexandra's enhanced reflexes processed the battlefield in microseconds. 2 guards remaining, plus automated turrets emerging from the walls. The Emperor's shield would be calibrated against energy weapons, not physical penetration. And most importantly, his species had a critical weakness in their neck structure, just behind the secondary breathing gills. She moved like liquid mercury, her blade leaving tracers of light in its wake. One guard's rifle hand fell to the floor, still clutching his weapon. The other found his armor split from collar to hip, vital fluids painting the crystalline floor. "Your kind never understood," Alexandra said, advancing on the Emperor. "You saw our blades as ceremonial relics, our martial arts as quaint traditions. You never grasped that we kept these skills sharp for a reason." The automated turrets opened fire. Alexandra danced through the barrage, each step placed with inhuman precision. The katana sang as it deflected bolts back into the firing mechanisms, destroying them one by one. "We remembered how to kill without technology," she continued, "because we never trusted it completely. Humanity survived countless disasters by keeping our primitive skills honed. And now, Your Eminence, you're about to learn why." Alarms blared through the palace as Alexandra pursued the fleeing emperor. Kraz'thull's personal shield sparked and flickered, damaged from her initial assault. He crashed through the grand doors, bellowing orders to his elite Crimson Guard. "So much for the fearless emperor," Alexandra called out, her enhanced legs propelling her in a graceful leap over the incoming reinforcements. The katana whispered through the air, leaving 3 guards clutching at suddenly vacant spaces where limbs had been. Red armored warriors poured in from side corridors, their weapons more sophisticated than the regular palace guards. Plasma bolts mixed with sonic disruptors and gravitational distortion fields. Alexandra moved through them like water through rocks, each step calculated by combat algorithms merged with ancient martial wisdom. "Observe closely," she announced to the palace's security feeds, knowing the Emperor would be watching. "This is why humans are different." The katana blurred as she spun through a group of guards, its monomolecular edge parting armor and flesh with equal ease. "We don't just adapt to defeat our enemies, we learn to enjoy it." A massive Crimson Guard captain charged, his armor crackling with energy fields. Alexandra slid under his swing, her blade finding the microscopic gaps between his armor plates. He fell in 4 precisely divided pieces. "Your species conquered through overwhelming force," she continued, her voice carrying over the sounds of battle. "You never learned the art of close combat. Why bother when you had fleets of warships?" Another guard fell, his weapon cut in half along with his torso. "But humans? We spent millennia perfecting the act of killing each other up close and personal." The remaining guards formed a defensive line, their weapons creating overlapping fields of fire. Alexandra smiled, reaching into her diplomatic pouch. They tensed, expecting a grenade or energy weapon. Instead, she pulled out a handful of small metal spheres. "These are called caltrops," she explained, scattering them across the floor. Bronze Age technology. Still effective, the guards' advanced armor did nothing to prevent the simple metal spikes from piercing their feet as they charged. Alexandra danced through their stumbling ranks, her blade ending their suffering with surgical precision. Through the palace's security feeds, Emperor Kraz'thull watched in growing horror. His most elite warriors, trained from birth in the art of combat, were falling to what his species had dismissed as primitive weapons and techniques. "Your Eminence," Alexandra's voice echoed through the corridors, "are you understanding yet? Your technology made you soft. Your genetic engineering made you predictable." She paused to deflect a barrage of plasma fire back at its source. "Humans never stopped preparing for the day we'd have to kill gods." A squad of guards activated their jump jets, trying to gain advantage through aerial mobility. Alexandra's blade caught the light as she spun it in a complex pattern. Their bodies fell in neat sections, their jets spraying fuel across the ornate walls. "Every human child learns about hubris," she continued her advance, stepping over the growing pile of bodies. "About pride before the fall. We tell stories about powerful beings who underestimated humanity." The katana flashed again, ending another guard's existence. "Today you become one of those stories." The Emperor's voice boomed through the palace speakers. "You are still just one human. My palace holds 10,000 warriors." "Numbers," Alexandra laughed, the sound carrying no humor. "That's all your kind ever relied on. Let me teach you about quality over quantity." She reached a junction where 4 corridors met, each filled with advancing guards. Her blade moved in patterns perfected by generations of masters, enhanced by modern technology and carried forward by unshakable will. The guards fell like wheat before a scythe, their advanced armor providing no more protection than paper against the katana's impossible edge. Alexandra moved with fluid grace, each strike flowing into the next in a deadly dance that had been choreographed centuries before humanity reached the stars. "Send them all," she called out, knowing the Emperor could hear her. Send every warrior you have. They'll learn what humans have always known. Another guard fell, his shield generator exploding spectacularly. The most dangerous predator isn't the one with the biggest teeth. It's the one that never stops hunting. Through his monitors, Kraz'thull began to understand his terrible mistake. He had dismissed humanity as primitives playing with borrowed technology. Now he watched as centuries of human combat evolution, enhanced by modern science but rooted in ancient skill, tore through his best defenses like tissue paper. The Emperor of the Dominion, ruler of 1,000 worlds, felt fear for the first time in his genetically engineered life. Alexandra found the Emperor in his private sanctuary, a vast chamber lined with trophies from conquered worlds. Kraz'thull had abandoned his ceremonial robes for battle armor, his massive frame humming with activated combat systems. "No more running," Alexandra asked, blood from fallen guards dripping from her katana. "You want to see why the Dominion rules the galaxy?" The Emperor's armor opened, revealing neural interface ports across his scaled skin. "Let me show you." True power energy coursed through his body, his muscles swelling as combat drugs flooded his system. Alexandra settled into a classic kendo stance. More technology, more enhancements. You still don't understand. The Emperor charged, his augmented speed turning him into a blur. Alexandra pivoted, her blade singing through the air. Sparks flew as monomolecular edge met energy-sheathed armor. "We studied your species thoroughly," Kraz'thull growled, throwing a punch that could shatter concrete. "Mapped your genetic potential, calculated your limits." Alexandra flowed around the strike like water. "That was your mistake. You thought you could quantify the human spirit." The katana flashed, drawing first blood across his arm. "Some things can't be measured in a laboratory." The Emperor's secondary arms deployed, each wielding a plasma blade. "Your primitive weapons cannot match Dominion technology." "Technology," Alexandra laughed, deflecting all 4 blades simultaneously. This sword was forged by hand in the final days of Tokyo. The Smith's family had been making katanas for 40 generations. She spun past his guard, scoring another hit. He killed himself after finishing it, so the techniques would never be lost to your kind. Kraz'thull roared in frustration, his attacks becoming more frenzied. "You are nothing, a primitive species that borrowed its way to the stars." "We didn't borrow our determination," Alexandra replied, her blade weaving an impenetrable defense. "Or our creativity, or our spite." The katana snaked through his guard, severing one of his secondary arms. "While you were perfecting your genetics, we were perfecting our hate." The Emperor stumbled back, purple blood spraying from his wound. "What are you?" "I am humanity's answer to extinction." Alexandra advanced, her movements becoming faster. "We knew species like yours existed. That's why we never stopped training, never stopped preparing." Another strike disabled his shield generator. Every martial art, every fighting technique, every dirty trick humanity developed, all of it preserved, refined, passed down. Kraz'thull's remaining weapons blurred in desperate defense. "Your entire species should have broken under our assault." "You don't understand humans at all." Alexandra's blade caught the light as she launched her final attack. "We don't break. We burn. We rage. We spite our way through apocalypses." The katana moved in an ancient pattern, perfected centuries before humanity dreamed of stars. One strike disabled his armor's power core. The next severed his remaining secondary arms. The third opened his primary arteries. The Emperor of the Dominion fell to his knees, looking up at the human who had destroyed everything he thought he understood about warfare. "Remember this moment," Alexandra said softly, "when your kind looked down on primitive species. When you think technology equals superiority." The katana rose for its final strike. "Remember that humanity's greatest weapon was never our tools. It was our refusal to submit." "What? What are you going to do now?" Kraz'thull gasped. Alexandra's smile was cold as space itself. "I'm going to ensure your empire never forgets this lesson." The blade fell. "Humanity sends its regards." The Emperor's head hit the floor with a final, satisfying thud. In death, his genetically perfect features wore an expression of profound revelation. He had finally understood why the galaxy's older species had a single warning about Earth: leave the humans alone. They never forgot how to kill gods. News of Emperor Kraz'thull's death spread across the galaxy at faster than light speeds. The The security feeds showing his defeat went viral across every species' networks, despite Dominion attempts to suppress them. The galaxy watched in stunned silence as a single human armed with a primitive weapon systematically dismantled the most advanced military force in known space. Alexandra stood before the Galactic Assembly 2 weeks later, her diplomatic uniform replaced with formal military dress. The katana remained at her side, its blade cleaned but bearing microscopic notches from its work in the palace. Each mark a reminder, each scratch a story. The Dominion's fleet has withdrawn from Earth space, she announced to the assembled representatives. Their new leadership has agreed to unconditional surrender and reparations, her voice carried through the vast chamber. Humanity accepts these terms, with conditions. The assembly chamber buzzed with nervous energy. Species that had dismissed humans as upstart primitives now watched with new respect and fear. First, Earth will oversee the dismantling of the Dominion's genetic superiority programs. No species has the right to play God, she paused, letting her gaze sweep the chamber. Second, all restricted technologies will be shared equally among Galactic Assembly members. No more artificial hierarchies. Representatives from older empires shifted uncomfortably. They had maintained power through carefully controlled technology sharing. That advantage was now gone. Finally, Alexandra's voice hardened. Let this be a lesson to any who think military technology alone grants superiority. Humanity spent millennia preparing for threats we couldn't imagine. We never stopped learning the art of war, never grew soft behind our shields. She drew the katana one final time, its monomolecular edge catching the light. This blade was forged by human hands, wielded by human will, and proved that spirit surpasses technology. Remember that before you mistake our love of peace for weakness. The assembly erupted in discussion as Alexandra departed. Behind her, she heard snippets of conversation in 100 languages. Species that had existed for millions of years were reevaluating everything they thought they knew about warfare and dominance. In the weeks that followed, Earth received formal diplomatic recognition from 30 previously hostile empires. Trade agreements were rewritten, borders redrawn. Humanity's reputation shifted from primitive newcomers to dangerous equals. Alexandra returned the katana to its place of honor in the restored Tokyo Museum, beside the ashes of the master smith who had forged it. A simple plaque told its story to visitors from across the galaxy. Here rests the blade that reminded the stars why humanity never forgot the old ways. We are not ruled by our technology. We are not defined by our tools. We are human. We remember. We survive. We prevail. Years later, alien children would ask their parents why humans were treated with such cautious respect. The answer was always the same, because they understand that true strength lies not in the weapons you build, but in the will to use them. And humans, above all species, have never lacked for will.